What's up, everybody? Today we are doing a full, deep dive breakdown of The Devil's Mouth, the shark thriller that dropped on Amazon Prime Video in the summer of 2026. This one comes from director Jeff Wadlow, and honestly, it's one of those movies where the marketing sells you a straightforward shark attacks people in a cave premise. But the actual movie spends almost as much time on the friend group falling apart as it does on the shark itself. So grab something to drink, get comfortable, because we're going through this thing start to finish, every character, every death, and exactly how it all ends. Before we get to any cave, any shark, any blood in the water, we need to talk about the 5 people this story actually revolves around. First up is Sarah, played by Kathryn Newton. She's the emotional center of the whole movie. Sarah is the responsible one, the planner, the person who's actually paying attention to her surroundings while everyone else is goofing around. And this trip means something deeply personal to her. Her father passed away recently, and years earlier, he had visited these exact same caves in Thailand. So for Sarah, this isn't just a graduation trip. It's partly a pilgrimage to feel closer to her dad one more time. It's also worth knowing that Sarah is the one funding this whole vacation for the group, which becomes relevant later, because it ties her even more tightly to wanting everything to go right. Then there's Max, played by Lana Condor. Max and Sarah have been best friends since they were kids, the kind of friendship where they finish each other's sentences. But, and this is important, Max is also kind of a lot. She's bossy, she's impulsive, she likes being the one calling the shots, and she has a habit of steamrolling everyone else's opinions, including Sarah's. Before the group even gets to the cave, we get a flashback that tells you everything you need to know about their dynamic. The night before, the group is partying on a yacht, and Sarah ends up getting left behind in the water. She gets stung badly by a jellyfish, and it's Max's fault because she wasn't paying attention. Sarah forgives her almost instantly, because that's just how their friendship works. Max messes up, Max gets bossy and a little manipulative about it, and Sarah lets it go anyway. That one moment basically sets up their entire relationship for the rest of the film, rounding out the group. James, played by Nico Hiraga, who is Max's boyfriend. He's easygoing, a little bit of a background presence early on, but he becomes central later. Then there's Greg, played by Gavin Casaleggio, who we learn fairly early on has a serious phobia of blood, a detail the movie plants specifically so it can pay it off in the worst possible way. And finally Adrian, played by Tommy Rose, who's along for the ride as part of the friend group. Their local guide for the cave tour is a man named What, played by Tame Thaptham Thong. What is experienced, he knows these caves well, but he's also the kind of guide who can be talked into things he probably shouldn't agree to. The group travels to a remote stretch of the Thai coast to take a guided tour through a landmark called the Devil's Mouth, a massive, flooded limestone cave system. The name comes from its entrance, jagged stalactites hanging down from the ceiling, and stalagmites rising up out of the water below, forming rows that genuinely look like teeth, top and bottom, framing the entrance like an open mouth. It's a visually striking way to open the movie, and it immediately tells you what kind of place they're about to swim into. They access the cave by kayak, then have to swim the rest of the way in, because the system is almost entirely underwater passages and flooded chambers. Before they go in, What lays out the plan? There are 2 possible routes through the cave, a green route, which is easier and better mapped, and a red route, which is longer, more dangerous, and largely unmapped. And immediately Max, being Max, pushes hard for the group to take the red route instead of playing it safe. What also mentions, almost as a throwaway detail, that there's a smaller cave nearby nicknamed Skeleton Cave, the site of an old village that collapsed into a sinkhole generations ago, leaving human remains still down there. It's the kind of ominous world-building detail horror movies love to drop early and then never really return to, but it does a good job of establishing that this place has a body count that predates the shark by a long time. There's also a quieter character beat here, feeling guilty about what happened on the yacht. Max secretly slips What some extra money to keep a close eye on Sarah during the dive. It's a small gesture, but it tells you Max does actually care, even if her way of showing it is controlling and a little self-serving. As the group swims deeper into the system, we start getting hints that something is off. They pass through a chamber littered with dead sea creatures floating in what's supposed to be entirely freshwater fish that have no business being there at all. Nobody clocks it as a red flag in the moment, but it's the movie quietly setting up its reveal. Here's the thing, we never actually see the shark swim in on screen. Instead, the film lets the characters and us piece it together after the fact. There's a narrow passage connecting the cave system to the open ocean, and the movie strongly implies that a run of unusually heavy storms pushed seawater and marine life through that connection and deep into the caves. Bull sharks are one of the only shark species on Earth that can tolerate both salt water and fresh water, so the science actually holds up. A storm surge, a hidden channel, and one very large, very displaced bull shark now trapped in the same flooded maze as 5 college graduates. The first sign that things have gone seriously wrong doesn't even involve the main group. There's an unnamed diver already in the cave system when they arrive, and the shark gets to him first, deep underwater, completely out of sight. The group doesn't know anything happened until one of them dives down and comes back up having seen a massive cloud of blood clouding the water. What searches and recovers the diver's shattered mask, and there's a shark's tooth still lodged in it. That's the moment the guide realizes this isn't just a difficult cave tour anymore. It's a life-or-death situation, and they need to get out immediately. Of course, by then, it's already too late to just turn around. From here, the movie shifts into full survival horror mode, and the group starts getting picked off one at a time. Let's go through exactly how each death plays out, because the order and the specifics really do matter to how the ending lands. Greg goes first. Remember that detail about his fear of blood? Adrian gets a nasty cut navigating through the rocks, and the sight of all that blood starts messing with Greg badly. While the guide is trying to get Greg into a life jacket to keep him calm and afloat, the shark strikes. It doesn't just pull him under quietly, it grabs him by the legs and drags him repeatedly into the jagged rocks above the surface, smashing him against them again and again while the rest of the group can only watch, frozen, from a small rock ledge. Eventually, the shark pulls him under for good. It's brutal, it's fast, and it immediately shatters whatever confidence the group had left. What is next? And his death actually comes from a moment of cowardice rather than bad luck. With the group stranded and arguing about which direction to go, their experienced guide, the one person who actually knows these caves, decides to cut his losses and swim off alone rather than lead them out. He makes it to a narrow gorge, tries to climb up out of the water to safety, and the shark catches him from below, biting into his leg and dragging him under before he can pull himself out. It's almost a small moral punishment built into the scene. The person who abandoned the group is the very next one it kills. Adrian is third. Her leg injury from earlier, the same blood that set Greg off, never really stopped bleeding, and it's been quietly drawing the shark toward the group the entire time. During another moment of panic and arguing on their rock ledge, Adrian slips into the water. The shark, briefly stuck in a narrow gap in the rocks, breaks free just in time to find her. She's pulled under, and the movie doesn't show us anything after that. She's simply gone. James is fourth, and his death is the one death in the whole movie that isn't actually caused directly by the shark. While the group is squeezing through an especially tight section of the cave, James gets physically wedged between 2 rocks and can't free himself. Sarah and Max try everything they can to help him, even attempting to feed him air, but there's no way to pull him loose. With no oxygen tanks and the water level working against them, James is stuck. In his final moments, he tells Max that he loves her and to keep moving, to keep fighting to get out, and then he drowns, trapped, while his friends are forced to leave him behind because there's nothing left to do, and finally Max. This is the death the whole movie has been building toward, because Max and Sarah's friendship is really the emotional spine of the story. The two of them make it to a point where they need to climb up toward an opening that leads out toward the ocean, their best shot at an exit. But earlier in the film, Max broke her hand, and climbing with a badly injured hand is nearly impossible. Sarah tells her to wait, that she'll climb up first and come back with help. Max, true to her character right to the very end, refuses to just sit and wait. She insists on trying to climb up right alongside Sarah despite the injury. Sarah tries to help her with a rope, but the shark surges up out of the water and attacks Max mid-climb, and the force of it very nearly pulls Sarah down into the water along with her. With no other option left, Sarah is forced to cut the rope to save her own life, and Max is lost to the shark. Sarah is now completely alone. At this point, the shark has dragged Sarah far away from that ocean exit she and Max had been trying to reach. Exhausted, injured, and out of options, Sarah notices a thin outcropping of rock nearby, something like a natural support beam, and she climbs onto it, letting her legs dangle just above the waterline. And then she does something genuinely reckless. She cuts her own arm open to draw blood into the water on purpose, using herself as bait to lure the shark in. It works exactly as badly as you'd expect at first. The shark rams into the rock again and again, trying to get at her. But Sarah's positioned herself carefully, right in front of a fragile, unstable section of the cave wall. On what turns out to be the shark's final attempt, it lunges at her one more time. She drops down at the last possible second. The shark instead slams full force into the weakened rock, and the impact triggers a localized collapse. Falling rock crushes the shark right where it hit. Dazed, bleeding, but alive, Sarah pushes forward and eventually finds her way into a smaller cave chamber with a hole in the wall and daylight pouring through it. She climbs toward it, pulls herself up onto a ledge, and lets out a triumphant scream as the camera pulls back to reveal she's high up along the coastline, with the ocean visible in the distance. Sarah is the only one who makes it out. Every other member of the group, Max, James, Greg, Adrian, and even their guide, dies somewhere inside the devil's mouth. The ending is deliberately left a little open. Sarah's clearly elated and relieved in that final scream, but she's also shown stranded high above the water, and the film doesn't explicitly confirm how she gets the rest of the way to safety. That said, the movie has spent the whole runtime establishing her as the most capable climber and the most level-headed member of the group, so the implication is that she makes it the rest of the way on her own. Catherine Newton has spoken about what that final moment is meant to represent for Sarah, describing it as a kind of primal, animalistic realization that she'd become the apex predator in that cave, that she'd beaten the shark and survived on her own terms. The idea the filmmakers were going for is that this is meant to be a hopeful ending, not just a survival story. Sarah spent the entire trip following Max's lead, and it's only in this final act, completely alone, that she has to trust her own judgment and finally comes into her own. At the end of the day, The Devil's Mouth gets sold as a straightforward killer shark movie, but it's really a friendship drama wearing a creature feature costume. The shark is the mechanism, not really the point. The actual story is about a dynamic where one friend has spent years quietly deferring to the other, and it takes losing literally everyone else for Sarah to finally step into her own power. Critics were pretty mixed on it. Some called it predictable, especially once you clock which characters are the unlikable ones early on, and the shark's visual effects got some criticism too. But if you're in the mood for a high body count creature feature with a little more emotional weight underneath than the genre usually bothers with, it's a watchable one-and-done thriller. That's the full breakdown of The Devil's Mouth. Let me know what you thought of the ending in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.